The political witch hunt of former President Donald Trump rages on. Trump will be arraigned on criminal charges in Georgia on September 6th. All right, now let's bring in former Arizona gubernatorial candidate and good friend of the show, Kari Lake. Kari, really good having you on. Look at this. This came out today. I'm just blown away. Look at this timeline. Control, throw up the timeline of the cases, these court cases, and look how they coincide with important primary dates. Look at January 15th, E. Jean Carroll civil trial, January 15th, same day, 2024. How is that possible? But this one is the one that kills me. March 4th, 2024, just about mid to the middle right of your screen. March 4th, 2024, in yellow. That's the election trial that was just announced. That's where they're going to go for it down in Fulton County, Georgia. And guess what's the very next day, Kari? Super Tuesday, the most important day for GOP primaries. They are, as they say, there are no coincidences in politics, and this certainly doesn't look like one.
I was just going to say, wow, what a coincidence. Hey, the timing is just so perfect for Joe Biden and his pals in the corrupt judiciary. You know, they wait for so long to go after President Trump on some of these charges, and then they want to rush the cases, and they don't want him to be able to talk about any of this. These are real important issues on the campaign trail, and they want to put a gag order on him and prevent him from speaking about it. And this thing in D.C. with the most Trump-hating judge in the entire country, the most Trump-hating jury pool in the entire country, and trying to rush this case when there are, Eric, thousands of pages of documents and hundreds of witnesses and people involved. How can the president get a fair shake? I don't think it's possible.
He can't, Kari, but here's the odd thing. Post-GOP debate, Fox had the big GOP debate that flopped 50% lower than what their normal audience would have been. But everyone's saying, oh, who's the big winner? Well, was it DeSantis? Was it, I don't know, Vivek Ramaswamy? You know what happened? 538 polls in conjunction with ABC News has Trump actually moving up post-debate. So the more of these indictments, the more of these arraignments, the more mugshots, the more powerful the man becomes and the more support he gets.
Well, but let's also give credit for those jump in the poll numbers to the people at the kids' table, the people on that debate stage. America looked at that cast of characters and said, we don't want a single one of them. We don't want Ron DeSantis, who was the disappearing man. He couldn't even come up with anything to say except his canned lines. We certainly don't want Chris Christie, the bloviating former governor of New Jersey, who left office, I think, at like 9 or 10% approval rating. Asa Hutchinson, who the heck is that? It looked at that entire cast of characters and said, why would we want any of them when we have the greatest president of all time who is running and we know can do the job? So I think when America got a chance to see who was playing at the kids' table there, they went, wow, we definitely are with President Trump. He can do the job. He can do it starting on day one. He can get us out of these endless wars. Meanwhile, the people on that debate stage, most of them were warmongers. So America looked at it, they compared, and they said, nope, we're with Trump.
Yeah, America is coalescing behind the guy. I watched all weekend long since the mugshot aired. There are so many African-American people saying, you know, he's our guy now. All of a sudden, out of the woodwork, they're saying, look, we've been persecuted by law for how many years, whether they have or not, Kari, they feel they have, and they now feel Trump is in the same boat they've been in for the past 60, 70 years in America.
Well, we're really seeing the justice system, the Department of Justice actually target and go after an American citizen. And we see a two-tiered justice system. Many people in the Black community have been saying that for a long time, that there is no justice. It's unfair, the justice system. It's just that they've seen the two-tiered justice system even before others have. And so I think that it's a natural to see people watching what's happening to President Trump come to his aid and say, wait a minute, this is wrong. This is persecution, not prosecution. But more importantly, I think that the African-American community is waking up to the fact that the Democrats have taken taken them for advantage of this group of wonderful people in America and just taking their vote and expecting to do nothing for it, not earn the vote, and just get the vote. And meanwhile, people who are in these Black communities are saying, wow, wait a minute, we had opportunity zones with President Trump. He actually found a way to get people to invest in our communities, turn them around, build them up, strengthen them. And they're also looking at President Trump and saying, wait, just a few short years ago, we had the lowest unemployment levels in the Black community and in really across all walks of life under President Trump. And the dollar was more valuable. The economy was better. Our streets were safer. I think people are just waking up and saying life was better 4 years ago under President Trump, and right now we're heading in the wrong direction, and we're heading there fast.
Yeah, I see the hip hop community, the African American community, coalescing behind Trump. They're saying he's our guy now. He's funny. Look what happens. He takes a mugshot. He's mad. And they're laughing about it. It's really interesting. I'll tell you who's not getting the Trump feel is Joy Reid. Joy Reid loves what's going on. Listen to Joy Reid, and I want to talk a little bit about where she's coming from after you hear this soundbite.
So as a teenager living in New York, I've said it before, this is the reason I never watched The Apprentice. I despised Donald Trump because he, to me, signified the rich white guy in Manhattan that absolutely hated and despised me.
Okay, so let's take that apart. Before you weigh in on that, I just want to, let's do a little, let's do ombudsman for Joy. Let's do a little fact-checking, shall we, for Joy Reid, because no one fact-checks the talking heads, the mouthpieces on the left. Joy Reid, as a teenager living in New York, she wasn't a teenager living in New York. She spent the very first part of her life until she was 17 and change, almost 18 years old, living where? In Denver, Colorado, not in New York. And said she grew up watching Celebrity Apprentice or Apprentice. The first iterations of Apprentice prior to Celebrity Apprentice was The Apprentice. That started when Joy Reid was 36 years old. 36 years old is when that started. So growing up as a teenager watching Trump in New York, that's why she doesn't like him. She felt he was racist. You know who's the racist here? I hate to say this. Joy Reid, you're the racist for lying about what you recollect about Donald Trump. Kari.
Well, either she's lying or she just has a memory kind of like Joe Biden's where she can't come up with the straight scoop and the stories aren't meshing. I actually, in a weird way, I feel sorry for her that every day she wakes up with that kind of hatred. Every day she thinks victim mentality. Instead of, when I see somebody doing well, I'm excited for them. I say, way to go. How did they achieve that success? I want to learn more about that. That's the American dream. That's the American way, not waking up being jealous and angry because of somebody's success. And President Trump, by the way, was beloved by everyone before he ran for office. And because he had the audacity to say, I'm going to step into the political arena as an outsider and help turn this country around, take the great ideas I have, implement them, and turn things around for Americans and make everyone's life better. The fake news, and Joy Reid's part of that, had to turn on them because they are part of the swamp. The fake news is arm in arm, hand in hand with the swamp back in D.C., and they couldn't have an outsider show everybody all of the corruption.
They can't have Trump gaining in the polls with African Americans. That would ruin it for them. That would just blow their minds completely. It'd be all over. Kari Lake, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, they're in trouble then because the African-American community, I've seen many instances where I've been around Trump or been at a rally, and there are people of all walks of life, all different colors who love President Trump and love America first.
There we go. Kari, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks so much.